Okay, recordings in progress. I want to also make note that myself here, I am wearing a brown hat with a white band and a little flower. There it is. So you know who I am, and I'll be the main facilitator, but I'll be in the background. And I also want to point out Meg Pierce. Let's see. Meg Pierce has her hand waved. She's our executive director for the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania. And she is also here to help us tonight with anything technical that you have. And Meg, if you could put your email into the chat, that would be great. And you can also directly chat to Megan. Okay. So closed captioning. We have closed captioning enabled. So in order to enhance your audio, your video, please feel free to turn that on. That's easy. It's down in the lower right-hand area of your screen with the three little dots that says more. Okay. The other thing I want to ask is that while we're speaking, our program's going to be divided into several parts, but during the presentation part, I ask our audience to keep themselves muted so that we can have quiet and we can hear the speakers as they are presenting and as they are answering our questions. So thank you for that. And at the end of the time, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A. You're welcome to put questions into the chat during the presentation as well. We'll handle those at the end though, most likely. Okay, let me just make sure I've got everything. All right. I am going to start with screen sharing. There we go.
Then, as you're pulling up the slides, if it's at all possible for those of us on the panel to speak up a bit, we're getting some comments that for some folks, the audio seems low.
Okay. Can you hear me a little bit better? I'm sitting a little closer to my computer. Okay. I see a head nod. I think I might have just been sitting back a little bit. So thank you for telling me that, Cecily. I appreciate that. So tonight, our program is called Courage, Purpose, Resilience, and we're going to be celebrating the leadership of the National Council of Negro Women, specifically the Pennsylvania Coalition of the National NCNW, and we'll be meeting some of the leaders of that group. So, see with any luck, I'll be able to, there we go, move on to the next slide. And we, as is our custom here at the League of Women Voters Equity Initiative, we're going to start with a land acknowledgement for Pennsylvania. Sorry. We acknowledge the land of Pennsylvania, the boundaries drawn in 1681 by colonists coming to this country. And we recognize the great nations that were here before we came: the Erie, the Iroquois, the Muncie, Delaware, the Lenape, the Susquehannock, the Shawnee, and Ohio Valley. We acknowledge their original place here as stewards and also acknowledge those living among us today. And I want to say that tonight we're going to honor a very special human being. Her name was Dr. Dorothy Height. She was the president of the National Council of Negro Women for over 40 years. And if you can see her beautiful photograph and her beautiful purple hat, you can see that that is one of the reasons why we're wearing hats tonight. We're going to be honoring Dr. Dorothy Height. And we'll be learning more about her in just a little while. I think I can stop the share. Okay. Let's see. Let me just get back. Okay. All right, we're back to our Alright. So I want to start with my first introductions. This program has taken a while in the works. My first conversation was with Dr. Terry Griffin, who actually is our president emeritus of the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania. And I asked her if it might be fitting to talk to the women of the NCNW, because I knew that she was not only a member, but that she had done so much work in Pittsburgh, greater Pittsburgh, and beyond to forge relationships. And she agreed. And we're joined by Cecily Peters, who is also a member of both the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania and the NCNW. So the three of us are the cohorts. If you got problems, you got to see us. I'm going to pass this over now to Cecily and Dr. Griffin, who will announce our three panelists, great leaders. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies. Woo, woo. Looking good with your hats on. It's great to be here with you tonight. And our dear colleague Jen introduced me. I'm not going to delay the program this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Tamiko Patterson. She is the president of the coalition, the state coalition of the National Council of Negro Women, and she'll tell you a little bit more about herself. Tamiko?
Thank you very much, Dr. Terry. So again, my name is Tamiko Patterson. I am the Pennsylvania State Coalition President for the National Council of Negro Women. I reside in the Poconos. So I love seeing the land acknowledgement because in the Lenape land here. I've been the president of the state coalition since September. And prior to that, I was the section or chapter president for the Greater Pocono section in the Poconos. So I just said, I love the organization. Our mission is to lead, develop, and advocate for women of African descent as they support their families and communities. And that's what we do. That's what we're all about. And I am so excited to have this partnership with the League of Women Voters so that we can work together. And one of NCNW's initiatives is voting and voting rights. So I think we will have a lot of ground that we can cover together to make some things happen in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
So, and I think I will go next. I have the pleasure of introducing the president of the Rankin-Mon Valley Pittsburgh section of the National Council of Negro Women. So as Tamiko just mentioned, our chapters are called sections. And so the Rankin-Mon Valley Pittsburgh section is, our president is Dr. Cheryl Maccabee. And Dr. Maccabee, I'll give you a moment to introduce yourself, please.
My name is Dr. Cheryl Maccabee, Esquire, and I am the president of the Rankin-Mon Valley Pittsburgh NCNW, as Cecily has said. I joined NCNW because my mother and her friends were members of the NCNW, as they found it was an organization which greatly helped African American families. So I grew up with the organization. I believe the help that we're doing and things we're doing now are so needed, but they're slightly different than what my mother did years ago. Today, I believe the organization is fighting an economic fight against entrenched structural and institutional racism. I am proud to be an NCNW member. Besides this historic moment, which I believe this is a very historic moment, right now with League of Women Voters and NCNW collaborating for the greater good for all, my most proud NCNW moment was when Mary McLeod Bethune was honored by becoming the first African American in the Statuary Hall of the U.S. Capitol on July 13, 2022. And thank you so much for inviting me, and I look forward to a really interesting discussion.
And because we're talking about NCNW being about family, Dr. Maccabee is actually my aunt. So my grandmother and my aunts are strong women of NCNW, and here I am, third generation. Dr. Griffin.
My dots sometimes don't connect, and Meg knows that. The state board knows that. But I too am a proud daughter of a mother and grandmother who were members of the National Council of Negro Women, and it just seemed right to bring that legacy into what we're doing with the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh and my role as Director of Diversity. And we're excited. We're excited about what we're doing. So Jen, I think you're going to introduce our next panelist.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much, Dr. Terry. So it is my pleasure. Just make sure I can pull this. Okay, I have it in speaker view. It's my pleasure to introduce our third panelist, Miss April Braydale. Baydale, I'm sorry. She is a registered nurse, and I believe April is from the Philadelphia section.
Yes,
And I'd like to pass it to you so you can introduce yourself, April. I'm so pleased to meet you.
very nice to meet you. And thank you so much for your warm introduction. I am April Baydale. I am a nurse by trade, 20 years of medical training. And I am also the first vice president of the Pennsylvania State National Coalition of the NCNW. My heart is in healthcare. My job is, I work as a family nurse practitioner. So I do a lot with the church and their outreach and partnerships with different organizations to address communities of faith and their health needs. I have a lot of health experience, but my heart is really in health equity and diversity and addressing the issues of health equity and social determinants of health. This has become my new health obsession by creating these opportunities for those who need healthcare and to obtain healthcare. So I am so excited to be here tonight with the National League of Women Voters and the partnership and the collaboration that NCNW has with us, because we know that women of color are the most underserved with their health needs. And it is my heart's desire that our voting will impact and change what that looks like as we address access to care and those issues around health and equities as we go forward into the new season of life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, April, for being here and so much for your kind words and words of wisdom. And now I want to pass it back over to Cecily Peters, who's going to give us a little background on what Black History Month actually is.
Thank you. So, of course, we wanted to acknowledge this fantastic historic partnership. And we thought of no better time than to have the first acknowledgement of our partnership during Black History Month. And some of you may know the history of Black History Month, and some of you may not. So we thought it would be valuable to ground all of us in the same information. So if you're not aware, Carter G. Woodson first acknowledged Negro History Week in 1926. And I was actually having this conversation with some colleagues earlier today because the reason he founded Negro History Week was to create consistency in the education around Black Americans in the public schools. Now I'm gonna take a pause there for a second and say that that was in 1926. We are here in 2023 in the year of our Lord, and we are still having the same conversations. So nearly 100 years later, and we are still having to have the same conversations about equity and equality in our public schools. And so I just think it's incredibly valuable to think about the why Black history matters, because it's American history, it's all of our history, and it's happening in real time. So in 1926, Negro History Week was founded. In 1976, 40 years later, Gerald Ford took what was then Negro History Week and created a month surrounding it. And his ambition was that month, and I meant to leave this slide up, so the month would help people to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. That is the reason why President Ford felt that Negro History Week wasn't sufficient and that we needed an entire month to acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of Black Americans. So I love that Black History Month has evolved in this way to celebrate the contributions of Black Americans. And I recognize, 1976 was within my lifetime. So this is still a relatively new endeavor for our country. And I think, when we think about where we are in the history of this country right now, in this nation right now, we're on a precipice. And so I think that what we're doing today is so incredibly valuable, not just because it's Black History Month, but because it's everybody's history. And this is all of our opportunity to continue to learn from our history and to evolve it together. So thank you.
Thank you, Cecily. Thank you so much. It's so much to think about. Such a good way to look at our history. So the next part, we're going to touch on history a little bit more. And I'm going to introduce a little bit of history about the League of Women Voters as a League of Women Voters member. The roots of the League of Women Voters go back 103 years. And from the beginning of the women's suffrage movement, its founders were well-known activists at that time. They were pillars in the fight for the passage of the 19th Amendment. But in reality, voting was a privilege that was given to a select group of women, to white women, and to generally women of means, white women of means. As we today finally look through a lens of racial justice, bias and exclusion of African American women and women of color was embedded throughout the suffrage movement. Participation and membership was denied. It was really not until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that all women were truly able to exercise their right to vote. However, African American voices, organizations, brilliant leaders, brilliant minds were never silent. They were and are strong women of courage, of purpose, and resilience who persisted and who are here among us today, as we know. The League of Women Voters acknowledges this past and the many decades that followed. Within our organization, bias and discrimination persisted well into the 20th century. There is a determination now in this new millennium, however, that we emerge with awareness of the work yet to be done. We challenge our leagues and members to fully welcome, without exception, those from every corner of their league community, to fully see all of us as we need to be seen. We are now guided by the League of Women Voters US Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Policy, our commitment to equity and inclusion, which I will read to you now as a start to this program. The League's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. The League of Women Voters is an organization fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and practice. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are central to the organization's current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. There shall be no barriers to full participation in this organization on the basis of gender, gender identity, ethnicity, race, or indigenous origin, age, generation, sexual orientation, culture, religion, belief system, marital status, parental status, socioeconomic status, language, accent, ability, mental health, educational level or background, geography, nationality, work style, work experience, job role function, thinking style, personality type, physical appearance, political perspective, or affiliation, or any other characteristic that can be identified as recognizing or illustrating diversity. Thank you. And I want to say that this has been a long time coming. I wasn't part of the planning for that statement, for that policy, but it has become the guiding focus of the work that I've done in the time that I've been here. And I am very much in gratitude for the women that spent the time researching and thinking and envisioning the future. So thank you. Okay. So now we're going to move back. We're going to move back now to the history of the National Council of Negro Women, and I'm going to share my screen. Dr. Terry Griffin will be taking over at this point to discuss some of the historic figures that are so valuable and so important. So,
Jen, before you share your screen, I just want to make a few comments,
sure.
very brief. This partnership for me at the age of 72 is extremely meaningful. And I want to express great appreciation to the greater Pittsburgh chapter of the League of Women Voters, because they embraced the vision that I had, and we discussed it, the meaning of being in a partnership with an African American organization. And I just need to say that because it's significant. And this is the beginning of many things. And I want to also say that I am very honored to be the first African American president of the Pennsylvania League of Women Voters. That was 2019. We're still 103 years old. So that was a great opportunity, and the foresight that the women had to elect me in rural areas of Pennsylvania, suburban, inner city, across the Commonwealth, that was major. And then I want to share very quickly, our national president, Dr. Deborah Turner, is also an African-American woman of which we are very, very proud. She's a medical doctor. And Meg, correct me if I'm wrong, is she an attorney as well? I know so we've got a lot of that going on here.
I think she's busy enough just with her medical practice, but she is retired now, but she was a reproductive health specialist. Exactly.
So, and to be able to now forge on with the state league. And I remember very briefly when Dr. Turner had called me for something else. And I shared with her, I said, I got some good news to tell you. And I told her that the League of Women Voters in Greater Pittsburgh had just entered into a partnership, and that we are now moving into the state. And she was excited. She said, leadership, for some reason, think it's top down, and it's not. It is bottom up. It is all of us in the trenches, in the grassroots. So you ladies with your wonderful hats, and those who don't have hats, kudos to you, because you are part of forging history today. And I want to thank you. So I'm excited about the National Council of Negro Women. I'm going to read some things because, as I said, my dots don't connect sometimes. Mary McLeod Bethune.
I'm going to share the screen now.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm just going to share
okay.
it. Just give it a minute to set up, and then everyone can see the slides. I need to move it to that slide.
That's okay. That's Dr. Dorothy Height, who, while you have her picture there, Dr. Dorothy Height, as you can see, served as a president of the National Council of Negro Women for over 40 years. But I also want to throw this in 2017, the United States Post Office honored her with the Black Heritage Stamp, and they awarded that honor on the first day of Black History Month, February 1st in 2017 at Howard University. So she is among the great people who are on our forever stamps. So if you get an opportunity, go to the post office and ask, they have that Dorothy Height stamp. It's a forever stamp, and it's always good.
I just want to chime in. I was actually there for the stamp unveiling. It was a fantastic event at Howard University, and I still have my booklet of stamps from that event. So it was fantastic.
Wonderful. For those of you who don't know, that is the state president of the National Council of Negro Women. So we begin with Mary McLeod Bethune, a noted humanitarian and an advisor to 4 United States presidents. She had a vision in 1935 with a simple goal of using the collective power of African American women. Ms. Bethune created the nation's broadest based advocacy organizations. Her vision was powerful and clear. Change in our communities could be generated by bringing women together with a unity of purpose and action. Unified voices and unified action would lead to greater influence in the advancement of social and human rights and would enrich the lives of our children and our communities. With the power of 32 national women's organizations and 330 campuses and community-based sections, Mary McLeod Bethune's vision and spirit lives on. The voices of women all around the world can be heard collectively through the National Council of Negro Women, Inc. Dr. Dorothy Height, who hailed from Rankin, Pennsylvania, was the chair and president emeritus until her passing on April the 20th, 2010. I wanted to share briefly with you the goals of the National Council of Women, Negro Women, to advocate for and provide services to African American families, to work through and with diverse cooperating agencies and organizations in both public and private sectors to provide leadership, support, and outreach, to extend the collective power and leadership of African American women by continuing the vision of our founder, to strengthen the economic and social position of African American women and their families, encouraging entrepreneurship, financial literacy, and economic stability, to advance civil rights with special concern for women's rights, voter education and registration, economic opportunity, and healthcare. And lastly, to focus on youth development, mentoring, and excellence in education, promoting science, technology, engineering, and math skills. Next slide, please. Here we see Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune with girls from the Literary and Industrial Training School for Negro Girls in Daytona, Florida, which she founded in 1905, and that came from the Florida State Archives photographic collection. So she really had a vision, and she wanted to make sure her vision came into fruition. Next slide, please. Again, this is a younger picture of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. You heard in my description, she was an advisor to several presidents. She was an advocate. She was on the battlefield. And for me, Dorothy Heights serves as a role model because we're going to need every ounce of energy in today's world to fight for women's rights, to fight for civil rights. We can no longer be silent. Next slide, please. Civil Rights March on Washington, D.C. This was the original black and white negative by Warren Leffler. And this was taken August 28th, 1963. And again, young as I was there to actually witness this walk. Next slide, please.
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay, so ladies, again, we want to thank you for this awesome partnership. And we hope that what we're doing today will serve as a foundation for things to come. And at the end of our session, we'll make some announcements about the continuing collaboration between the League of Women Voters and the National Council of Negro Women. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. So now we're going to move into some questions for our panelists and bring them into the forefront. Our questions are broad, but we hope to cover a little bit of ground in the time that we have here. And we're going to rotate the questions. So let's see. Cecily, would you like to go first and lead the first question? Order.
And Dr. Patterson, we'll start with you as the state president of the NCNW. We've talked a lot about partnership tonight, and clearly we are stronger when we work together, within our organizations and across organizations. So my question is, how can we foster collaboration between groups, and what concerns are shared mutually between groups?
First, I'm not a doctor.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not as smart as Dr. Terry and Dr. Cheryl, but one of these days I aspire. So
I'm just
um,
speaking it for you. I'm speaking it
thank
into
you, thank
existence.
you,
Right.
thank you, sis. Thank you, sis. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity. So when Dr. Griffin and Dr. Maccabee first reached out to me with this opportunity, I was flabbergasted. And I shared the story of when I went to the very first time I went to League of Women Voters was back in 2010 here in Monroe County, and I went to a meeting because I wanted to get involved, and I walked in and there were a bunch of white women sitting around a table, and they looked at me like, did you make a wrong turn? And I said, is this the League of Women Voters? And they said, yes. And I said, well, that's what I'm here for. So, I sat through the meeting and, they all said, they said to me, we were looking for people of color to join us. So that didn't make me feel good. So I didn't go back, honestly. But I knew that there was an opportunity there, and I ended up getting involved with NCNW instead. And so, how life is, right? It's cyclical, and it brings you right back to the League of Women Voters. We have, everything like April talked earlier about being RN and health equity, which is one of NCNW's thrusts, voting rights. Everything that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, right, is impacted by voting. And, that's what the League of Women Voters does, right? Tries to encourage people to vote. So I think, and especially, right, we talk about women's rights, which are being attacked, on a daily basis of late. So there are so many opportunities for us to collaborate just to ensure that we get people out to vote, but especially women, and just looking at all of the issues that we face in this in the country, and Cecily, you talked about Black history, right? I used to be a school board director, and we talked about just book banning, the fact that this Black history isn't being taught in schools, and children not understanding, children not feeling like they even belong in certain schools. My own son, who's 23 now, when he was 10 years old, he came home and said, Mommy, we don't belong here. And I'm like, what do you mean? We pay taxes and, we do a lot of things. What do you mean? So, but all of that, again, is impacted by voting. We vote the right people into office. If we vote for the right people that are going to support the bills that are going to support, our rights, women's rights, and the rights of all peoples in our country. So, I can talk forever. There's lots and lots of opportunity, but I'm very excited about it.
Thank you. Dr. Terry, would you like to ask the next question?
All right, ladies, what are we challenged by in our work? I think Tomiko said something very interesting, and we want everyone, all of us, to understand that diversity is more than race. It's so much more inclusive. It's not about let's go to this Black sorority and hello, and recruit, but we have mutual skill sets. So what are the challenges that we are facing in our work separately and our future work together? April?
Thank you. So some of the challenges that I see when two entities come together to try to collaborate and address issues are there's a lack of communication. They're not clear in what the goal is. So if there's not a clear goal, if there's not clarity in the goal, people are just kind of spinning their wheels. There also is a lack of structure, which leads to a lot of frustration. People become very frustrated when there's not a structure in place that will kind of guide them to those areas where we could truly address the voting and who's being etched out of sorts and not their needs are not being addressed. And there's little recognition when there's opportunity. People need encouragement to be free. Like Tomiko spoke to, she was kind of put off by walking into this group of white women. The reality of it is there is intersection of race, there's an intersection of class, there's an intersection of, we have to come together, but we have to be honest in where we are. Like, we know that the race was lost. Hillary lost the race because people were not honest in who they were voting for. You know, they said they were voting one way and they didn't. So there needs to be a very clear and honest communication between organizations and in partnerships as well to address those things that are really on the table, because the outcome of races of the vote is what we are seeing now. You know, this is years in the making. So we really have to be very clear in structure and in honesty as well.
I appreciate that. And one of the things that the League of Women Voters is really known for is structure and studying issues before we just jump out there, doing our research. And one of the things that I think is going to be helpful in both organizations, the National Council of Negro Women bring to the table a certain skill set. The League of Women Voters bring to the table a certain skill set. And I believe when we share our stories, when we are open and honest, and diversity, equity, and inclusion is not an easy conversation, but if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, I think we will grow because we can recognize each other's vulnerability and turn that vulnerability into a strength for all. Jen, do you want to raise the next question?
I will. Thank you so much.
Dr. McAbee has her hand up, so we might want to address that really quickly.
I'm sorry.
No, that was exactly, I was going to address to Dr. Cheryl McAbee.
Okay.
All right.
I think that
Yeah.
when you say what are some of the challenges we face in our work, I think time management. There are so many deserving projects, but not enough time to accomplish them all. And it seems like every day there are new things that need to be addressed. But I think also that we should, besides the League of Women Voters and their voting situation, the gun safety area. I think that's definitely an area that you know, that would be something that we can collaborate on.
Excellent. And I was going to take the next question, Dr. Cheryl, and you can turn off your video because I know you're struggling with that.
Jen,
This is pulling it just a little bit. Yes,
Jen, I'm sorry. I'm going to go off script if you don't mind for just a second.
sure.
Ashley brought up a really interesting comment in the chat when we were talking about the intersections and that diversity is more than race. She brought up the intersection with age and that we need to make younger people feel a part of and wanted in these organizations. And I know that at least at the local level, that's something that is a mission for both NCNW and League of Women Voters. I'm sure at the state level, you know, all of our chapters and sections that resonates with all of us. And I'd love to hear from our panelists. How do we envision making our organizations more attractive to younger members? And it's open to any panelist.
Yeah, so I'll jump in. So, you know, one of my goals as a state president is to definitely get younger people involved in NCNW. One of the things that I hear, so we have collegiate members. So we have 10 collegiate sections across Pennsylvania, and they do their own thing. And when I tell you, I get to sit down and talk to all these young people, and they have the best ideas. But then when they graduate from college, they don't go into the community section. So that's one of the things that we have to work on as an organization. But if they were to take their brilliant ideas and share them with their community sections, I think, you know, we would be a fantastic place. But I think what happens is, and I'm not speaking for all the sections, because I know Dr. Cheryl was partying with the Robert Morris students last weekend. So we're not talking about Dr. Cheryl, but a lot of our members do not want to, you know, they're young people, they don't know what they're talking about. We're older, we have more experience. I think that's what happens, and we kind of shut them out. And we have to remember that they are the future. They're smarter than we are. You know, these folks out here are working from home while we're still trotting our little butts into the office, and they have demanded that they don't want to do that. So I think it's really us, you know, the older folks, we need to really sit down and listen to them, because the world has changed. For some of us, we've seen more change than others, but the world has changed, and they are, somebody put in the chat, they are the future. So we do need to bring them in. And if we don't bring them in, allow them to share their ideas, all of our organizations are going to fall apart. So I agree.
Thank you, Tamiko. You know, I think Meg, as the state executive director and as a younger person, might have some experience. So Meg, if you'd like to share a little bit too, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, I'm so glad to hear that this is a topic of conversation because it's something that I think about every day as we work to, modernize membership. What does membership look like? How do we attract younger folks into our work? And I think the key to doing that for both of our organizations is just recognizing, as Tamiko said, the power of young people. If we look at the turnout in 2022, young people decided our elections in 2022. And really importantly, young people are less and less affiliated with political parties. So they're less and less loyal, unlike their parents' generations, to the Democrats, to a Republican, and they're more likely to actually be independent and to vote on the issues. So to really understand what drives young people, you have to understand that, we're a generation that cares about reproductive justice, that cares about climate change, that cares about gun safety. And if we can prove to them that we are advocates on this issue and we can train them not only how to register to vote, which obviously they value, but also to go beyond elections and to really get into the issues and be able to work on them in a nonpartisan way, I think that's really valuable. So always underscoring that when you engage with a young person, that this is a way to be actively, civically engaged all year round is by joining one or both of our organizations.
I wanted to say as the president of the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh that we recently made our membership free to students. So that's a way to get younger participants. But we also have a wonderful civic ed program under the leadership of Amy Clesis. And we really focus on the fact that we look at the statistics of how many young people vote, and we talk about what's important to young people, and then we compare that, we contrast and compare that to the kind of things that are important to people my age, and tell them that we are what we call the super voters. We vote all the time, and so we're getting a larger voice, we're a louder voice at least in a lot of issues. And we do often hear from students in classrooms. In almost every classroom, LGBT rights comes up, gun safety comes up, reproductive rights comes up. If you got a group of people our age together, that might not be the case. That might not be the top of the list. People are worried about Social Security, retirement funds, things like that. So I think that's one way to get these, and we're registering these students too. So we're registering these students. We're trying to reach out to a diverse population in schools. That's a goal for us. But I think that the acknowledgement that different age groups have different priorities is very, very important. And I think that when Tamiko was speaking, one of the things that came to mind, and also just I was thinking of ways to collaborate. I used to be an early interventionist in my former life, and I'm very concerned about the statistics of women in the state of Pennsylvania in general, but also Black women, and the infant mortality rate that we have in Pittsburgh is one of the worst in the country. Those are things that I think, and I'm not sure where the League of Women Voters fits in with that, but I think that's something that I worry about. That is a very large concern to me, and where that fits into where we are. But I do think that that's something I wish we could collaborate on, because that's a great concern to me as a Pittsburgher, as a Pennsylvanian, as an early interventionist, as the mother, and a grandmother. Those are things that are very important to me. But
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
We're going to return back, I think, to our questions for our panelists.
Sorry, Jen, I totally hijacked.
No, that was awesome. Every single one that spoke was awesome. I'm so proud to be here with you guys. I'm thinking about asking this question, just jumping down a little bit through our list of questions. This is the question for the panelists. How will or does partnering impact or have the potential to impact your work? So it's a matter of thinking, I've heard a lot about the work, the different concerns, but I want to talk about how can we have this become a greater impact? Does it have that potential? And anyone from our panel seeking.
I don't want to hijack, but I do think that this partnership further legitimizes both of our organizations, right? You know, it gives the National Council of Negro Women a greater audience for white women to understand what we're doing. And it also tells the population that the League of White Women Voters is not just a white women's organization, right? So I think just if we didn't do anything else but just talk together, I think that gives, you know, the legitimacy to both of our organizations and expands our membership on both ends. But I think that, you know, and April mentioned this earlier about setting a goal. I think, and I think we've been so excited about this whole partnership and all the things that we could do, but I think we need to sit down and set a goal. What is it that we want to achieve within our partnership? Do we want to grow our individual memberships, you know, with certain populations of people? Do we want to register a certain number of voters? Whatever that is, I think we need to sit down and say, this is our goal as the, you know, the league and the council partnership. And then move forward from there. So that way we can have something that's measurable, right? Something that's achievable, that's measurable. And then we can come back next year, this time, well, not even next year, but 6 months from now and say, look at what we've done. You know, getting more people to vote in the, you know, the elections. Now, I know we're all super women. I don't know how much we can impact the primary in May, but in November, I want us to be able to come back and say our partnership increased, you know, voting in the November election, or we help to get certain issues addressed, you know. That's what I would like to see.
Thank you.
And I don't even know if I answered your question, Jen, but that's what
You
came to my
did.
mind.
You did. You nailed it. And as you were speaking, I thought about a couple things that maybe are real goals. One of them are, you know, perhaps some candidates forums that are done as partnerships. I think sometimes that if we are able to do that, I know in our community, we did one a couple years back that included 5 organizations all together. And the questions that came out, the audience that showed up, the excitement, you talked about that, the excitement that was generated by that partnership was benefited the voters, benefited people so that they could understand the issues and how the questions were worded, ran through our Latino community, ran through our NAACP community. And in the end, it really mattered how we worked together. And
I just want to say just a couple of things here because you're right on point. Last year, I guess it was, it was close to or shortly after the presidential election, and we were having conversations about collaborating with the national, we meaning the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, we're having conversations about collaborating with the National Council of Negro Women. And I have to say, the League, through Rochelle Kaplan, said, you know, this is something good that we can do. And I think each organization was kind of preoccupied with their own set of plans around the election. But as they moved forward, at the state level, they've done some collaborations. As a matter of fact, in our upcoming June convention of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, the welcome reception is going to be co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania and the State Coalition of the National Council of Negro Women. That's wonderful because you're going to have people coming, seeing, interacting, interfacing. And I think Tamika's right on point. When people see us doing the real togetherness, they'll say, aha, let me change my view of this particular organization. It's not just about all of the Black women and all of the white women, but you know, we're stronger together. We're more powerful together. And then in Pittsburgh, through our voter services, we do great things with a multitude of diverse organizations. But I think it was one of our members, Eileen, who was saying, we're more than voters. We're more than voters. And I think, Tamika, you're on point. What can we do together? Now, I know at the state level and the local, we have to submit our program priorities to the state, and then, you know, we move from there. But I think, and this is going to sound a little radical, I think sometimes that's absolutely required and it's on point. But you know, when I hear Dr. Cheryl talk about gun safety, when I looked in the Pittsburgh Courier, a block paper here in Pittsburgh, and 41 women and children have been murdered since 2021. That's an atrocity, and yet we're silent. Sometimes I get asked the question, well, you know, is this going to be partisan here or nonpartisan? Well, if it's affecting my community, I'll put on the Dr. Griffin hat and go as an individual. But I think we're stronger together. When we see people in our community and we show up together, it kind of says, you know what, I can join that group. I can participate in that group. And now to move the agenda on, tonight's meeting is an example of inclusivity and partnership. I want to raise some questions for our panelists. And if anybody, you know, raises their hand, we'll try to acknowledge you, but we do
Dr.
have some
Terry.
questions we want to put forth.
Dr. Terry,
Yes.
Dr. McAbee had her hand up for just a moment. We might-
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to just kind of piggyback on what others said. I also agree that we should have common goals and common interests. And to some extent, we should maybe find one or two other organizations that we can join with. And the reason why I say that is because I attended a University of Pittsburgh Diversity and Inclusion webinar this week, and it was excellent. And the executive director from Healthy Start is an African-American woman, and what they're doing about infant mortality and some of the other things, I think that we could really, you know, get into that and really join with them and be very supportive of that. And we all could be a collective group stronger together.
I appreciate that, Dr. Cheryl. And one of the things that, you know, we have the e-blast and we have the voter through the league, but, you know, the National Coalition of Negro Women also have a communicator. And I think now I'm excited because several women from the National Coalition of Negro Women have become members of the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh. So whatever the league's communicate is, it goes out to everyone, which includes our new members. But maybe down the road, we could think of having a collaboration on our communication so that everyone who's a part of our organization, you know, like Dr. Shirley is saying, you know, Pitt is doing this. We didn't know that until you just mentioned that. So greater communication, greater connectivity would be an excellent idea. So I want to raise a question with our panelists in that context in terms of inclusivity and partnership. In that context, do we see partnerships working effectively? Because let's be real, there are people even in our own organizations like, I'm not gonna work with those white women. Let's get real. I'm not gonna work with those Black women. You know, and everybody is entitled to their individual opinion. But when it impacts or adversely impacts the movement, the intersectionality of our coming together, then we need to take a step back. And Jen will tell you in diversity training, you have to own your bias. So again, I raise a question and whatever panelist wants to answer, in the context, do we see partnerships working effectively? And if not, why? April?
I mean, April said something earlier.
Sure.
Okay.
Again,
Or you know, any one of the panelists, you know, Dr. Cheryl, Tamika, all three of you, as a matter of fact.
so I think that for partnerships to work effectively, with the inclusion, you know, with the inclusiveness and partnership, you really have to rely on honest communication. Like you said, you walk into the room and you're like, I can't work with the women, these white women. And they're like, who is this coming in the room? But that's okay, because it is real, right? If we acknowledge that that's really where we are and have that communication, we can move forward. Without that, there's that wall that just, you're not going to be honest with each other. You're not going to be able to build a trusted relationship. So there has to be an honest exchange of ideas and sincere intentions. Like, we sincerely want to reach the masses to address maternal health issues. People are dying, women are dying. This is serious. How are we going to do this together? Clear roles, again, just honesty, a clarity of roles, a clarity of responsibilities, and communication, I think, is the only way that you're going to have true partnerships. Otherwise, it's just going to fall apart.
Thank you. Dr. Cheryl.
I'll say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr.
No,
Cheryl.
go ahead.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead, go ahead.
I met with, I had a couple of meetings with Meg and Rochelle, and I tell you, I forget about inclusivity. I felt like I belonged. They were fantastic, and I had my doubts. I will tell you, I had my doubts. But we had some wonderful conversations, talked about possible opportunities to partner, and I'm really excited about it. So I know, again, in any organization, I'm sure fortunately, so far, no one in NCNW has said they don't want to partner. But I'm sure we'll have some people that don't want to do it. Well, I will share this one thing. When I brought up the possibility of partnership with the league, I did get some eyebrows raised, and I said, I know the history of the League of Women Voters, I know, but this is a new League of Women Voters. I said the past president was Black for the state of Pennsylvania, so they are making strides, and we can do this together. So, I don't think that there'll be an issue, honestly. And Dr. Griffin, you talked earlier about bottom up. But this is a top-down thing. Like we need the leadership on both sides to say, this is what we're doing. This is what the leadership has agreed to. If you're not on board, then see you later. This is a volunteer organization, right? So go and do what you need to do. Well, I'm saying, let me see, that's NCNW. I don't know how you it's structured. So let me take that back. But in any case, but just to backtrack, even when we were talking about this in my job today, when the whole George Floyd incident happened, and I had some people on my team that like, why are the Black people all upset? And I said, I pulled them into a room. If you don't understand, that's fine, but you cannot talk negatively about the Black people who are impacted by this incident. And if you have a problem with that, I'll be happy to find you another department to work in. And that's the bottom line. So everybody, like you said, is not going to agree, but as long as it's coming from the top down, everybody understands this is the initiative that the organization's leadership has agreed to, be on board or don't. Right. So
I love that. Dr. Cheryl.
I really don't have much to add to that. I just think that once we start having some successes, everybody likes a winner. Okay, when we start having some successes, we come together, things work out, people love it. I think you'll see people jumping on the bandwagon and wanting to be a part of it. We just have to knuckle down, find a couple good things that we can work on together and be very, very successful. And I think that'll set the path for the future.
I thank all three of you, and I want to just make one comment, then I'm going to send it back to Jen. When Jen read our diversity policy, it's a policy, and policies are what guide you. That means that, now I'm not going to ask you how much money do you make a year, but we certainly want within our membership diverse socioeconomic, across the board. I remember one woman said while I was the president, Terry, I have a little bit of a problem with your diversity policy. And I asked her honestly, I said, well, can you speak about it? She said, yes. She said, I just can't stand gay people. She is very honest. She had every right to feel the way she did, but I will tell you what I said. Maybe the League of Women Voters is not for you. Don't clutch your pearls. Seriously, because like Tamika's saying, sometimes leaders have to speak in such a way that it may not be popular, but it may be necessary. Jen, back to you.
Amen. Yeah, we have to push, we have to support and push at the same time. I see that I find myself doing both of those things sometimes at the same time, because one of the things I was thinking was, I think April mentioned this, that we will always have people that are not quite ready for everything new that's tried. And the leaders are pushing forward with the vision and, going forward, those are more ready to take that role. I think it's modeling that's going on. And there's so much that can happen. I think about this reception that's going to take place and the fact that, you know, some people are going to be coming in with not having a whole lot of firsthand experience with this kind of socialization, with this kind of partnership. But it's the leaders, those among us here tonight, that are going to help set the stage and help show that behavior, make the introductions, make people feel welcome.
And I think
Walk up to
everybody should
someone
be,
and introduce yourself, you know.
right. And everybody shouldn't be treated the same. And what I mean by that is women in our rural communities,
Mhm.
their culture is different than urban communities
Mhm.
and suburban communities. And so sometimes we can be so myopic in our thinking that we don't embrace or allow for room for others. And I think that as we go forward in both organizations, collectively and individually, we have to recognize that we are some mighty women, but we come from all walks of life. Some that you may not have been exposed to, but they're still relevant. Okay.
So,
Thank
Dr.
you
Terry,
for
before we
bringing
go.
I just
before we
want to
go-
say thank you for bringing in the socioeconomic difference that, and I think also that lays into the education difference, so that we have to think about that as both groups. Anyway, that's all I was. Sorry, Cecily. Go back.
No, I
to-
apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's a bunch of questions in the chat, and I think we've got an answer, but I wanted to confirm this because, you know, details aren't really my thing. Dr. Terry, you and I are much more similar than you would know. So Jen, there's a lot of questions about contact information for the local section chairs for section presidents, for example, of NCNW, and vice versa. In the resources section, did we put together a link to find each other?
We
Yes.
have, this is what we have. I'm going to, well, either Meg or I or both of us will send this into the chat. The links, there are links to the Pennsylvania Coalition. There's a link to the page that shows the Pennsylvania sections, so that if people within the league are looking to see where geographically they might align, they can see that. If everyone here on this panel is willing, I will add their email to, you know, to the welcome, to the thank you letter. That's entirely up to you guys. You can let me know. But as far as contacting the sections, that will be in there. And also the League of Women Voters website has an area that will allow you to look at all of the local chapters that we have throughout the state and to see which ones would fit under the umbrella of a section, for example. I am very interested in trying to develop some sections in other parts of the state. I don't know, you know, how we can do that, but I mean, I'm just so thrilled with this, or everything I've found out about this organization since I've been working on this has really inspired me to. So, yeah, but to answer your question, that will be in there. And
Thank you. And Meg did put that in the chat. So for those of you looking to reach out to your NCNW section, please start with the state website, which is beautifully designed, and then you'll be able to get in touch with your local section.
there's an email, I think, on each of those sections anyway. Okay, so we're probably good to go that way.
Yeah, I just didn't
And-
remember if it was in the resources. So that was my bigger question.
Yeah, and the resources, let's see, I will send those out in a thank you letter to everyone who attended, so that you'll actually get it in an email as well. Because I know some people are not as comfortable with the chat. You can save your chat from, just hit save at the bottom of this screen. Not every Zoom account allows you to do that. We have it set up so that you can, but I will also send out a thank you, because I know sometimes that just makes all the difference in the world to get it in your inbox. So,
And this is really interesting because, believe it or not, to our audience, we've had some prepared questions, but we've got a lot of response, and they've really embraced most of the questions that were prepared for our panelists to talk about. One of the things that I just noticed was, you know, someone mentioned, I think it was Eileen, you know, start small at the local level. Well, I know the National Council of Negro Women, our section, Rankin, Mon Valley, and Pittsburgh, they're going to have a meet and greet in September. So that's something that we can certainly, you know, invite others to, you know, again, to come on our side and, you know, come to our community, or just kind of do some mutual things together. I think that will add in our growth and in our interest. So Jen, do you want to jump
Yeah.
to
We're
or
actually,
is there any questions or?
believe it or not, we are at 7:15. I
Right,
cannot believe
Q&A.
it. I cannot believe this. This is amazing. It's almost like we just got started, but we are going to begin to wrap things up. Let's see. We were going to remind everyone to respect others and the limited time and all of that. And I have said, I have thought to myself, there was absolutely no need to run through that litany of rules or guidelines because we've been behaving in such a wonderful way. We have time for closing statements, and I think that's what we'd like to move to now, is to ask our three panelists for closing statements.
Jen, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm not going to follow the rule for a sec.
Okay.
I have my hand up, but I don't think you can see what the sunflower.
No, I can't see it all.
I just have a quick question. I looked at the website and I looked at the sections that are near us in Delaware County, and there is one. It's Cheney University. And Cheney University happens to be a school that we've done voter registration with for years now. But now there's a contact, right, for the section, which I didn't know existed. So I'm really pleased with this program. So my question is really, I guess, on the league end, is there going to be put together a like introductory kind of statement for, say, somebody like our league to reach out to this section at Cheney?
I'm going to say, I'm going to say probably not anything formal, because I think ultimately what we need to do is to use our own words. But I would, and I think, Anne, you have those great words, but I would say I want to pass that over to maybe Tamiko to ask.
Yeah,
Is
so I
anything
just wanted to say,
particular?
so, yeah, we wouldn't reach out, or you wouldn't or should not reach out to the college sections because they, first of all, they change very often. The local community section with adults is the Delaware Valley section, which serves Delaware County. And then there's a Philadelphia section as well. So there's two sections in that area. And I believe emails have already gone out with introducing the sections and the league presidents in those areas. So if you have not heard anything, then you can feel free to reach out to me just to follow up. But those introductions were made by email last month, I believe.
Thank you. That really helps clarify, Tamiko. I appreciate that. And I think it would be, we have not been as proactive in the league in terms of having like student chapters or student leagues, but we do have one that's just recently started at State College in State College, PA. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be better proper for a regular league to contact a regular section. And
Correct.
that's what you're saying. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Jen, where's Meg? I don't see Meg, but at any rate, I'm going to just throw this out there, and my time says 7:13, but I think yours is quicker than mine, faster than mine. But at any rate, our executive director, Meg, has been super phenomenal at getting the league interns that have worked with us, and they come from different disciplines. That may be something, Tamiko, that the state may want to consider. And certainly I would recommend Meg to give the details, because I know that our interns have just done phenomenal work with us in different disciplines. And so that may be something, but I think this gathering tonight is a beginning. It's an opportunity to see each other, to celebrate, even though it's Black History. For me, that's every day, but it's an opportunity to celebrate each other and understand each other. But, you know, Jen, keep us on point, because we want the closing statements, but we do want to have people get an opportunity to raise some questions, because I see some wonderful things from the Lorraine Cross. BPEP works with Judy in voter services. So there's for years. So there's a lot of stuff already happening at the local level. So Jen, Back to
Okay,
closing
we're
statements.
gonna take it away. Actually, you know what? I forgot to, I'm gonna put us back to this gallery view, and I know that Megan and Cecily, we're gonna take some pictures
Well,
of
actually,
this night. Yes.
actually,
Cecily.
Dr. McAbee has her hand up, so maybe
Okay,
you want
sorry.
I'm sorry, I just had just one thing I wanted to add, and that is that the University of Pittsburgh, part of their graduation situation, they have to intern with certain organizations. So one thing we have not done is followed up and try to get some of those Pitt interns to help us in certain areas. And the other thing is that we really should also think about those who want to start collegiate chapters in the Pittsburgh area is PCHE. That's the Pittsburgh Higher Education Association, which consists of all the 17 colleges and universities in our southwestern Pennsylvania. And Karina Chavez is a wonderful woman, and I've worked with her many times, and she is the executive director of PCHE. And she will really, maybe we can, talk to her and do some things with her as far as getting some of the younger folks involved.
Would that be Tamika going to our state? You're breaking up, Cheryl. I'm so sorry. We can't hear you. I'm sorry, you were breaking up and your computer was going back and forth. So
Okay.
Tamika, is that something that you want to address in terms of, every organization has a protocol, how we should go about that?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for opportunities for our collegiate members. So yeah, that would be any opportunity that we can provide for them, it would be fantastic. So yeah, we can certainly talk about that. And I think Meg, we're overdue for a meeting anyway, so we'll catch up.
Okay.
Jen?
Yes, now what I want to do is without wasting a lot of time on this, but we do want to take some photographs of the groups, and I think we have 3 sections of images of people. Meg, is
Jen,
it-
Yeah,
Yeah.
so everyone only in the first section has their cameras on, so we can just take a picture just like this.
Okay.
All right, I will take this. So everybody, big smile. 1, 2, 3. All right, let me just make sure that works. All
Love
right,
that
we're
hat. I
all
love that hat.
set.
Technology.
We're all set. The picture turned out great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move to our closing statements. So I want everyone to, just step back, relax, take a nice deep breath, and we have one more opportunity to listen to Tamiko, Dr. Cheryl, and April. So Tamiko, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'll be brief. Girl power, women rule the world. And if we work together, we can accomplish anything. So I think this partnership is a phenomenal opportunity for us to make some changes, starting in Pennsylvania and then next the United States. So thank you so much for having us here. I am so excited about working with you all and bringing my other members into the fold, and look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Whoever would like to go next is fine.
Dr. Cheryl?
Well, I think that everyone has said everything that I would like to say. But I think that just this collaboration is going to be extremely wonderful and fruitful. And sometimes the mainstream male organizations, just by the fact that they have 2 powerful women's organizations together, sometimes you don't have to do much. They just see that power and say, well, you know what, maybe we should listen to what they have to say. So I think that this is just our names being linked together, I think is going to be tremendous.
Thank you. That's awesome. And I think we have one more, April.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am so excited to come together in partnership with the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. I can't wait to see what's going to happen, how we're going to change the outcomes of so many votes, and just address the real needs of people's lives and see what that looks like. So thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to share. Thank you for all that we're doing together collectively. And I can't wait to the first meeting. Let's go.
I love it. I love this very, very much. And I want to just summarize with, I think, some things I heard. One of them was about being intentional and about having some specific goals, finding the things that we can work on together, and finding time. I think I would say take time be ready for the mistakes. They're going to happen, but let's pick ourselves up from that and grow from our mistakes and our learnings. They're challenges just to be walked through and something to learn. We're growing, we're learning. We've made, I never want to forget that I need to acknowledge the privilege that I have as a white woman. I want to put that to work. I want to make that something powerful and but not intrusive, not invasive, something that's going to benefit everyone. And that's a lot. So with that, I just want to say thank you to all of you. And I hope that everyone here, regardless of which organization you're in, you've had a chance to learn something new. And so I want to do, yes.
Just one thing. Do you know we had at one point over 64 people
That's amazing.
here, which is major. And we're this is just, my heart is just so grateful to the National Council of Negro Women, the celebration of Dorothy Height, for you all to see the history that we've been doing for a long time. Even though the League is 103 years old, we still have been doing some really relevant things. So, where's Preston? Can we get a shot of Preston? Where's Preston?
He was on my second screen.
Oh, you know what? Because Preston sent me an email and he said, Terry, because we have men in our league, as we do with the National Council of Negro Women. And Preston said, I'm going to show up with my chauffeur's hat. I was like, what? So kudos to Preston and everybody. Thank you for your support. Jen, back to you. Thank you for all that you do.
I'm just
grateful to work with you, Meg. Missed you guys.
This
has been wonderful. Jen, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to be quiet now.
No, Terry, you and I are connected. I think from the East Coast to the West Coast of PA. We probably always will be. But I want to just say, in closing, again, my gratitude, my extreme hope for this organizational partnership. It has been 4 years that I've been serving on the board of the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania. I'm going to be leaving because I think that, like anything, I think that you need to start fresh. You need to have change. You have to be able to not settle in and become comfortable, not only for me, but for the organization, so we can both grow. What I'd like to do in closing with everything that we've talked about, what I'd just simply like to ask everyone that's still here to do is to just put into the chat one word that is a positive thing that you heard that's going to help you be your part in forming this new partnership. Just one word. Could be a feeling, could be some skill that you think you can bring. It could be some framework that we need to have. So think about it and just put it in there.
And Jen, while people are writing, I just want to give a shout out to Cecily, the lady with the wonderful hat that she got on Amazon that I'm getting ready to borrow in a minute.
You can have it, my love. Not kidding.
She is with the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh and the National Council of Negro Women, our section in Rankin-Mon Valley and in Pittsburgh. But Cecily is my right arm as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Many of you know she was part of co-facilitation when we kicked off in January, and she has been working with Jen. So take a look at that young woman, because as I go into, I don't want to say sunset, sunrise.
The next chapter.
Thank you, Cecily. The next chapter of my life. Still be there.
Awesome. All right. I see some great words coming, and just let them in there. This is all going to be in a saved chat anyway, so it's kind of like a little thumbprint that we're putting on it, little personal thumbprint about what we can bring and share. Thank you so much. I'm just going to take a deep breath and just be so grateful for the possibilities that are before us.
Thank you all, and good night.
Good night.
It's been great.
Good night. Oh, do we want our panelists still here? Can we take a picture with?
Yeah.
just the panelists. I think we can pin.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night, all.
everybody.
Panelists don't leave yet.
Yeah, panelists, please stay a moment.
Good night.
Good night.
Pin panelists.
April
I
here,
can't
yeah.
see, this
Dr.
is
Cheryl?
Signora. I can't see you or anything, but I could hear you. It was-
And we can hear you.
Hey,
Okay.
Deborah,
Signora.
how are you?
Thank you.
Hi, hi, everybody. There's
Dr.
Hi.
Cheryl, you look like Wakanda forever. Come on now.
You are coming through, Auntie.
There we go. Can we add, can we take a picture of the screen with the 3 pinned pictures?
Yes, so Jen, you just want the panelists, right?
Let's do the panelists and then let's add, we can add
You
Cecily
and
and Dr.
Cecily and
Terry.
me, yes.
Yeah, so do we need to go off camera, Meg?
No. Let me just kindly ask the folks that are here to leave.
Do you want me to go? Do
Are you
it?
asking or are
Okay.
you just clicking them out?
I'm just clicking them out.
Oh,
All right, so I'm going to turn off my video. Find myself. Okay, I can see you all. Perfect. All right, let's say smile. 1, 2, 3.
Smile.
oh, where's us? Just
We're
panelists.
in, we're in
All
it.
right.
Oh,
Now let me
We're
just
at
make
the
sure
top.
that worked.
We need to
Hold
take
on.
another one because Dr. Terry was not prepared.
No, I
Okay.
thought it was
Yep.
the panelists and then us.
We're at the top, Terry. We're
Oh.
like, we're the cohorts up there at the top.
Oh. See,
Okay.
I told y'all about my dots. Come on now.
Meg, you should have yours on too.
Yeah, you should be on.
Okay, I'll be on.
You're
I
part
had
of
well,
this.
I had my
Oh,
own
come on,
view.
yes.
You're a part of this.
Okay, let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3, smile. All right, let me make sure that worked.
This has been so awesome.
Great. Everyone looks
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yay. Thank you
Thank you,
so
April. Thank you,
much.
Dr. Cheryl. Thank you.